Okay. All right. So we've got to sketch the graph of the polynomial function, and they gave us no structure whatsoever, right? To be able to do that. So we're going to go ahead and try to do that. This one's going to do something a little bit different than the other ones did. But we're going to try to follow the same patterns that we were given there. Okay. So the first thing we did was we looked at end behavior, right? That was kind of the first thing to deal with. Ooh, that's not what I wanted. Let me grab this one. End behavior. Okay. So looking at what we have there, we have f of x equals negative x squared times x minus 4. What kind, is it an even function or an odd function? Why is it odd? Yeah, there's 2x squared, right? The x squared counts as 2, and then the x to the first counts as 1. So you want to multiply your x's together, right? So this is acting like an x cubed, meaning it looks like, oh, it doesn't quite look like that, though. What's going to change it? What the negative in front is going to make it tilt the other direction, right? So it's going to act like this. It's kind of just good to know and understand those little nuances, okay? Because that really helps us with that end behavior. So if I was going to write out the information on end behavior, we would say as x approaches positive infinity. So as x approaches positive infinity, meaning it's going to the left. What's going on with the y value? Is it going up or is it going down? So as I go this way, what's going on? It's going down, so it'd be negative. Okay, because of the negative sign in front. Okay. As x goes to the left, f of x. So as my x value goes more this way, what's going on with the y value? It's going up. So we would say positive infinity. And again, as far as graphing, I'm being official and writing it out in the notes, right? You're going to have to match graphs is what you're going to have to do. You have to know enough about it to match graphs. That's the way I'm going to deal with this question. Okay. So I would draw myself a little sketch and I would just write my arrows, right? I know that one's got to go that up and this one's got to go down. Okay. The next thing I deal with are the zeros. So to get the zeros, I set the whole thing equal to 0. Zeros or the x-intercepts, they're the same thing. I'm going to set each one of those terms equal to 0. So negative x squared equals 0 and x minus 4 equals 0. Maybe. All right. When I divide that negative over to the 0, what happens? What do I get? 0. All right. We take the square root. So square root of 0. Still what? Still 0. Okay. So I know one of my zeros is 0. All right. What about the x minus 4? How do I move that to the other side? Add it. So x equals 4. Interesting, because we were supposed to have a cubic, right? There should be 3 zeros, but we only have 2, right? Because we have one at 0 and one at 4. This one here really counts as 2, right? As 2. Okay. And remember, the other pattern that we discovered was that if it had an exponent, it was tangent or it bounced off, versus if it didn't have an exponent, it was just an exponent of 1, it went through, it crossed. So this one should bounce or tangent, one of the two things. Okay. All right. The last thing we did was we looked at the signs. Okay. So we want to look at, I'm going to try to set up a chart that's kind of similar to what we were doing yesterday. And again, this is kind of the making sure we got all the little nitty gritty details. So we know that we have our constant factor. We have x squared. We have x minus 4. And then I'm just going to call it f of x because it's the whole thing together. Okay. I'm going to be a little bit lazy. Okay. And then we have to put our intervals in there, which we have to make up on our own this time. So let's just review the pattern. I'm going to give you a minute. Finish, draw that little chart, and then we'll review the pattern of the intervals. Okay. Pattern of the intervals. Let's look really quick. So let's go back and look at what we did before. So we know that we had these x-intercepts are zeros. We started with the smallest one and we said less than the smallest one. Then we repeated and kind of did that little sandwich inequality, right? Then we did the next number in line, right? And repeated it, sandwich inequality, next number in line. And we kept following that pattern, okay? Until the last one, we did a greater than whatever that last number was, okay? So let's try to follow that same pattern. What is my smallest number here, my smallest zero? These are my two zeros. Which one's smaller? 0. So I'm going to say x less than 0. All right, then I know I repeat that. I do the sandwich inequality, and I do, what's my next number? 4. And that's it, right? I only have those two numbers. So then I'm going to say x greater than 4 to end it. So it wasn't quite as many aboves and belows as the last one was. Okay. All right. My constant factor, remember, is whatever the coefficient is in front, whether it's 1, -1, or some other number. So what do we notice about the sign in front always? It's negative, so it's always negative. Okay, then the next thing I did was I would pick a number that falls in each one of those intervals, and I kind of wrote it off to the side so I remembered what that number was every time I had to use it. So what number is less than 0? -1. Okay, what number is between 0 and 4? 2 works. Okay, what number is greater than 4? 5. Perfect. Okay. Now we're going to put those into each one of these functions. So when I put -1 into x squared, do I get a positive or a negative? Good. When I put 2 into x squared, do I get a positive or a negative? Good. And when I put 5 into x squared, do I get a positive or a negative? Perfect. Did I even really need to do any of those? Was there anything I was going to get other than a positive out of having x squared? No. It was a squared is always going to be positive. Okay. All right. We're going to go ahead and try the x minus 4. So I put -1 into x minus 4. Do I get positive or negative? Good. And then I put a 2 in. Do I get positive or negative? Negative. Okay. And then I put a 5 in. Do I get positive or negative? Positive. Okay. All right. And then we're going to go ahead and look at the overall. Go ahead, Levi. You're going to have to just know enough to pick the right graph. So no. Okay. I'm making sure we understand all the mechanics of it, and then tomorrow we'll try the assignment the way we're doing it now. Tomorrow I'm gonna write the review like I'm gonna expect it on the quiz. Okay. All right. So negative times positive is what? Negative times negative is perfect. Okay. We have the same pattern here, don't we? So I'm just gonna go positive. All right. Negative times positive is negative times positive again. Negative. So remember, positive means you are above, negative means we are below. Okay, so let's go back to our graph. I have to be above, right? So I'm above, I know I have to point up, and I have to touch this, but remember we said, hey, it's gonna bounce off of that one, it's not gonna go through it because that was a squared. Because look, it still stays between 0 and 4, it's still above the x-axis. I'm going to be above, and then I have to cross through that one, and it goes below. Did my arrows end up the right direction? Yeah. Had I gone through this one, don't draw this, just watch. Had I gone through this one, I don't know. I don't think I wouldn't have been able to, I'm totally drawing it wrong. And now I just erased the wrong thing. If I tried to go through this one, I would have had to come back and go through that one, right? Or maybe bounce off of it, I guess. But so you got to make sure you bounce in the right place. Okay, let me go back and redraw my orange in there. Okay. All right, the good news is that's the last one we're going to graph together. Writing the equation is far easier than graphing, okay? Or at least for as much of the equation is that we're going to write. All right, let's take a look at the next section here. And it doesn't have a number on it or anything. We're just supposed to find the equation of the function, okay? Based on what we know. All right, so looking at A, okay, is A an even function or an odd function? Is the end behavior pointing the same or opposite? Opposite. So when it's opposite, is it even or odd? Odd. So we know that this is odd because our end behavior was opposite. So I know I should be a cubed, a fifth power, a seventh power, something like that. Okay. The next thing I'm going to look at is I'm going to look for my zeros. Okay. So I notice a 0 here, a 0 here, and a 0. And I apologize that it's blurry. It just is. I'm sorry about that. All right. So what are my zeros? Okay, so 0, 2, and 3. Actually, I'm going to write that a little different. I'm going to write x equals 0, x equals 2, x equals 3. All right. I'm going to kind of reverse the process we were doing before. I am going to try to get those into linear factors. Okay, so I'm reversing zero product property. There's nothing I can do with this first one because if I tried to subtract 0 over to the other side, it's still just going to be x. I'm going to take this 2 and move it over. So it's going to be x minus 2 equals 0. How do I move the 3 to the other side? Subtract it. So x minus 3 equals 0. Okay. I'm going to take those 3 linear factors and I'm going to multiply them together because that was the pattern that we saw before. Okay. I'm going to name the function f of x. So f of x equals, all I'm writing is this times this times this. So x times x minus 2 times x minus 3. Does this have a positive looking slope or a negative looking slope? Think about where the arrows are pointing. It looks positive, right? I always think about slope of a positive line when I look at odd ones because I know that really well, right? I compare it to that. So I know that it's going to be a plus sign in front. I don't really need to write the plus sign. That's it. We have an equation of that function. Okay, that's my expectation is that you can write that much. Okay? I'm not going to give you ones that use a coefficient in front that squish it and stretch it and all that business. Okay? All right. Let's take a look at the next one. Okay? So I'm going to kind of mark my zeros on there. Okay? All right. So the first thing, again, I am going to do, well, first of all, is it even or is it odd? This is even. So I should have an even amount of x's, meaning I should have a squared, a fourth, a sixth power. Okay. All right. I'm going to figure out all of my zeros. So what are my zeros at? I know it's a little blurry. What's this first? It looks like it's scaled in twos. That's -2. That's -4. So what's this one? -5, right? Because -6 would be here. So negative x equals -5. X equals what? -2. This is 2. That's 4. So what's my next one? 3. And then x equals 4. Perfect. Okay, we're going to reverse zero product property. Okay, so I'm going to take this 5 and I'm going to add it to both sides. So I get x plus 5 equals 0. I'm going to take that 2 and add it to the other side. So what do I end up with? X plus 2. Good. I'm going to take the 3 and add it to the other side. What am I going to get? Good. Take the 4 and add it to the other side. I'm going to get good. All right, you get to pick the name for your function. I don't care, okay? I'm going to call it f of x. Again, I'm boring. At least today I'm boring. All right, I'm going to multiply all those linear factors together. And the good news is we counted for 4. That it was an even number, right? So x plus 5, x plus 2, x minus 3, x minus 4. And I always leave a little gap in front there just in case I have to put a negative sign in, okay? All right. In this case on the even, where is it pointing both arrows up or pointing both arrows down on the end behavior? Up. So should it be positive or negative in the front? Think about this. This is opening up. Is that parabola going to be positive or negative? Positive. If we're pointing down, what should we put? Negative. Perfect. Okay. I do not have to actually put the plus sign there. That is an optional thing. Okay. Thank you. All right. Here's what I want you to do. You have one even or one odd and one even. Be careful because the directions changed, right? So we just talked about how to deal with that. I want you to take about 2-3 minutes, and I want you to see if you can write the equations for those. I will write the numbers on top of that D1. These are just scaled in 1. So this is -1, -2, -3. Okay. Huh? You can't even see D? I'll figure out what it's supposed to be. We'll make an agreement. That's 2. That's -4. That's -6. 0, 2, 4. This is 6. This is 8. So it looks like that's like halfway in between. All right. Take 3 minutes. Try it on your own. Okay, give you about 20 more seconds. Make sure you got them both. Okay, let's check it together. So on C, what were my x-intercepts or my zeros? -2, 0, and looks like 3. We'll go with 3. Okay. All right. X plus 2, right? Just x equals 0 and x minus 3. Are we all good there? Okay. It does not matter what order you type them in or put them into, whatchamacallit, put them into Otis. okay? If for some reason on the review, I might only type it in one way, but on a quiz, I'm going to take them all, okay? Probably we would see the X first, and then it really doesn't matter. Maybe the negative one first, but it should look something like that. What's different about this one? What else do I have to include? I have to include a negative because and it's going in that negative sloped direction, so you should have a negative in front. Okay? All right. Look at the zeros on the other one, and I know it was super fuzzy. Hopefully you got it from what I wrote up there. So what were my zeros on D? 2, 4. Everybody okay with the 7? It was kind of halfway between the 6 and the 8. Okay. It will be extremely clear on Otis, right? When you see the picture, it will be a nice, not printed digital picture. Okay. All right. So X, what am I going to do with the 6? Positive. So X plus 6 equals 0. X what? Equals 0. X equals 0 and X. Good. And then I'm just going to put them together. F of X equals X plus 6, X plus 2, X minus 4, X minus 7. They're pointing down, though, so what does that mean? Negative in front. Can we handle it? Okay, really isn't that bad. I did not put any additional homework out there, okay? So just because we spent an extra day didn't mean I assigned more, all right? You should practice this, okay? So that tomorrow when you come in, you're getting like those green check marks right away, right, on the review assignment, because that's your last chance to practice on review before we take a quiz on it on Friday. Friday, we are going to do a little bit of a lesson, but remember I told you it was like combining like terms, okay? So it's not a huge deal ahead of the quiz, all right? You have, I don't know what time do we get out, period 1. 10:04. You have like 14 whole minutes to work on this, okay? So open up some homework. Again, you need to do enough to make sure you got it, okay? So open up some homework, get practicing on it, okay? If you've got a question, you have 14 minutes to ask me, okay? Stop.